Hello, I'm Craig Mellon. This is my entry for assignment 5, my reflection on my unit. The first question, how do the tasks yield appropriate evidence of the identified understandings? So my unit has multiple pieces of evidence that starts with a hyperdoc that the students went through and answered questions as they went along. So I was able to examine those answers and look at those results early on in the unit. What I would like to do in the future is that hyperdoc had a variety of resources, a couple videos and articles that the students read. I think I'll break those down into individual mini assignments, so that way I can discuss those assignments one at a time with the kids, and I think it's going to help them better understand the information on those resources. A graphic organizer was used and created during a class discussion that we made together. And that was a good way for me to call on different students, see who was sharing, and see what questions the kids had. So I was able to there identify what information they easily understood and maybe what they were having more struggles with. And then at the end, the students created an infographic, and that was to show the knowledge that they learned throughout this activity. And so I was able to analyze that infographic and the information that was in it. Second question, how did the tasks involve a complex real-world application of the identified knowledge, skill, and understanding? And so I wanted my students to create some work of digital media that showed their learning. And I decided on an infographic because I found a tool, PictoChart, that I really wanted to try with my kids. And so that was their way to take their knowledge and create something real with it to show what they have learned, to show their knowledge. And this also brought the digital literacy skills into my lesson, into my unit. So they had to find images, be able to create a clear work of media to show what the topic that they're trying to share. What I would like to do better in the future is find a way to more publicly share the students' work. Now, we looked at each other's work in the classroom, but I would like to find a better way to share that outside of the classroom to really make those real-world connections. Question 3, how are a variety of appropriate assessment formats used to provide additional evidence of learning? And I used a combination of some formative and summative assessments of a variety of formats. So I think this was hopefully one of the strengths of my lesson. So one of the first assessments I did was in analyzing that hyperdoc and the students' responses. And then our class discussion, which was less formal, but a way for me to sort of quickly gauge how the students were understanding the information we looked at in the hyperdoc. And then the final assessment, my summative assessment, was a rubric that graded the infographic. And it looked at some of the digital media that the students created, but the main focus was the content, the historical content that was placed in that infographic. How are students given the opportunity to self-assess and reflect upon their learning and performance? I think the class discussion and the graphic organizer was a way for them to reflect on the hyperdoc and to sort of assess how well they understood. It was also a way for us to share as a class, so if students maybe didn't quite understand something as well, hopefully we could discuss it and clear things up a little bit for them. So I think that activity was a way to help them assess their learning from the hyperdoc activity. What I didn't do, and this was silly of me because I usually do this, when I use a rubric, I give it to the students ahead of time. I know that's standard practice. For some reason, I didn't on this unit, and it wasn't something I thought it's like, no, I'm not going to give it to him this time. I didn't pre-plan it. I just didn't do it for some reason. And so that was a mistake I made for sure. And that's something that I will remedy in the future. Yeah, like I said, this is something I usually do. It's just a mistake I made for this unit. So that's my unit, how I think it went, and some of the changes I plan to make. I do plan on using this unit again next year in my class, but I will make these changes to hopefully improve the success of my unit. Thank you.